Alrighty, hello. If you can see and or hear us, please do give us some indication. We'd really appreciate it. Oh gosh,
Hello.
I forgot I had the stream open another tab and scared myself. There we go.
Well, that's an indication, right? That seems like a strong message.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's nothing worse than a streamer than hearing yourself. It is. Truly.
I don't know. I kind of like it at this point.
I still don't. Whenever I hear myself, there's just a part of me that's like, ugh, it's awful. Everything about it is awful. Yeah, but it's been a hot minute since we've done one of these. But to be fair, we kind of did the original ones we sort of planned, and then from there we said, well, if we hit these kind of little milestone thingies, then we'll do some more episodes. And lo and behold, we hit those milestones like pretty hard and fast, to be honest.
Yeah, if I recall, Anath Raema was for my Twitch hitting 2K, and as of yesterday, it hit 3.3K. So
holy cow! Well, congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, but we've been going.
So in the past, for those that maybe have missed the earlier ones, we did these. Who did we already do? We did
Eldrasor, didn't we?
Yes, we did Eldrasor. We did Estreuth.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord of Hunger, Eldrasor, Lord of Blades, and I want to say we did one more. Did we do Hoeth?
We've still got Nethu to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nethu's the next one
at some point. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Some of that might come up today for reasons.
No, I believe it. Let's see. I'm sending out on socials because I am a goober and I wait until for some reason we start until I've been so busy like installing random stuff around here. I bought like some new fans and everything to get ready for summer because it's gonna be hot. But I've got like new blackout curtains installed. I've got a bunch of new fans and a bunch of other nonsense. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Vera, what? So we kind of left this one as Vera gets to pick any one she wants from like the 18 plus deities we had laying around that kind of fit this elven god theme. And why did you want to go with Anath Raema?
Because other than
jump in? Sorry, Ryan, can I jump in before we do that and say we should introduce ourselves? We promised each other that we would.
Oh, right.
So anyone starting the stream knows who we are.
No, but I was so excited.
And why we're here.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Lindsay Law. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Okay, I'm Lindsay Law, former Wifrip writer on 4th edition core rulebook and a couple of the other books. I actually play Lawhammer on Friday night from Andy Law and my living room, and I am an obsessed Warhammer nerd since, well, we won't talk about since when, but it's been a long time.
Oh man, yeah, I'm Ryan Sheelander, also known as Loremaster of Sotek. I run a big YouTube channel focused on kind of Warhammer Fantasy lore and literature and stuff. I also stream so much and do a lot of things revolving from Warhammer Fantasy to Final Fantasy to Age of Sigmar and some other nonsense. And I am one of the co-founders and co-owners of good old Lorebeards. And this is one of those ones that we did an experimental one a little ways back for I want to say Eldrasor is the first one we did, I think.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And it ended up being like an absolute banger. And so many people loved it that we did another one. So we did Estreuth, which ended up being another absolute banger. So it's like, okay, I guess we'll just keep going. But we did have to take a bit of a break because schedules got absolutely insane for several months on everybody's plates, but we're back and it's very exciting. Vera, you're up.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. I'm Vera Sibilla. Whoa, like Vera Sibilla, dude. I'm a thing maker. I'm one of the current writers for 4th edition. I work on Age of Sigmar Soulbound. I work on the Old World RPG. I was one of the writers on the Kothik books that featured Anath Raema recently. I am enthusiast for the god, and part of the reason that I wanted to talk about her is because she is my favorite other than possibly Loek, and I am super, super stoked to discuss her.
Yeah, and so for those that are not super familiar with what we try to do with this little particular series, is that kind of the original goal, and something that's made a lot of fun, is that the quote unquote elven pantheon has a number of gods that were created over the course of Warhammer Fantasy, especially, but a lot of them, unfortunately, like a good half of them, roughly, sort of got created in the very last minute before the world just sort of exploded. So we ended up not getting a ton of time and opportunity to sit down with them and like see them explored and detailed as characters, but or entities or individuals or however else you want to call it. So what we've been kind of doing with this is sitting down with the three of us, two of these people being not me, having officially actually worked on Warhammer material, and seeing if we can take these gods and sort of fill in the gaps and make them feel like a more cohesive part of the overall world, and pitch around a lot of what ifs of how could they be further detailed in various ways. And yeah, so that's the plan for today. It should be a good time.
Part of it is because they were added to the lore late. They're viewed very much through the prism of the dark elves and the high elves and the wood elves. And what we were really interested to do in the first two gods, and I'm even more interested to do here, is to think about what they would have been when the pantheon was won. Before you got the high elf propaganda about the savage huntress, before the dark elves became so obsessed with power and strength and savagery, like what was Anath, Raema? And I've got a few ideas on that, and I'm super excited to share them.
Yeah, I suppose it would do to start with how she is worshipped, how she is known, and what the legends of her are.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great starting place.
I would like to open by saying the Dark Elves are mostly doing it wrong. I think they're doing a very bad job.
Expand.
Well, Raema sees worship among the Beastmasters, the Dark Elves, who subjugate, subdue, and take control of great monsters.
Right.
They do so as sort of a display of dominance. I don't think that's really something she cares about too much. I don't think that's in the spirit of what she is actually about. I think they are invoking the image of a great, predatory, fearsome figure and using it to distance themselves from the hunt a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that Anath Raema is sort of called upon when you're dealing with the Beastmasters, of that she's not really by any means stretch like an entrapper of beasts. She's always Anath Raema, so there's not a lot written about her, to be clear, but what bits are there very much lean into her as being this bloodthirsty figure that hunts literally anything and everything. Like there is nothing that she will not pursue in the attempt to slay it.
Yeah, she's the apex predator, right? Whereas Kurnos is viewed potentially as more of a balance, hunting for food, hunting to bring balance back to the woods. You know, you've got too many deer, they strip away the trees. Like you can see the roots of in the Kadai, I think you can see the roots of the simpler times that the elves lived in the early days of their existence, far more than you can in the Kithrai. And so it's a much more balanced pantheon that has more to say about nature and living in harmony with nature, whereas the pantheon that the Dark Elves has got more to say about the brutality with which they exist day to day in their current home. But those two things miss the aspects of Anath Raema, of all the pantheon, before the Sundering ever happened.
Yeah, like I would say the Kadai is sort of broadly pro-social deities who fit in with the elven lifestyle of harmony and balance and a somewhat structured community, whereas the Kithidai gods are a little more selfish with their desires. So expressing those, because the elves worship through resembling their gods, they're supposed to, is a little harder in Aster society, especially.
Yeah, like if you think about it in like evolutionary stable strategies and game theories, the Kadai are like tit for two tats, and the Dark Elf gods, the Kithrai, are like tat for tit. So they're striking before. The Kadai are like waiting twice to check that you really are hurting them before they strike back. But I think that in the past, it wouldn't have been like that. And she would have taken, much as we did for the other two gods, a bigger part of the pantheon. And there are some things hidden in her history, that she's the sister of Cain, for one thing. Her relationship with Draupnir, Draupnir's relationship with Vol and with the Sword of Cain. So I think Draupnir's body's relationship with Ulthuan, like there are huge complexities to be unpicked about what her role was in the foundation of elven civilization before the Sundering, that it's not touched upon in the lore and not considered in how either the Dark Elves worship her, nor how every now and then Wood Elves, who get a little bit frustrated with Kurnos's balance, decide if they're a jilted lover or they're just like berserk in a rage, they'll go towards Anath Raema and invoke her to bless their hunt.
Yeah, so I think it actually would be worth. So let's grab the couple of super chats that came in as we were just sort of getting started, and then I think we'll take an opportunity to sort of turn back the clock and take a look at what exactly is the written history of Anath Raema, and like what is there that we can sort of operate with and explore. So Joe Numbers, good morning from work, ladies, and Ryan, I guess. All right, yeah, sure, I'm here too. Thank you. I guess. Watchdog, thoughts / hopes on the Old World RPG announcement. I imagine they should have a notable announcement coming up soonish. I don't know if there's like a particular thing on the schedule. Feel free to elaborate if they've said there's like a specific, if there's been like a hint of something coming up.
Yeah, like when I read this, I feel like I have to be careful because I know some things internally. I don't really keep track of what's known.
Yeah, we do have someone that actually has worked on it, so feel free to add a little bit of elaboration if you'd be so kind, because we can't really play like the vague posting game without potentially saying something that's not supposed to be said in some parties. So feel free to elaborate if like. If you're talking about in general, I will say that I really hope that the Old World is going to very quickly start. I hope it differentiates itself speedily, lore-wise, from the like 4th and upcoming 5th edition of regular Warhammer Fantasy. Like to really explore like what's it like going through the Empire when it's like a shattered collection of nations, as opposed to nominally more unified structure and stuff like that. That would probably be my personal biggest hope, but I also want to see like all the new factions be played. Like I really want a Cathay book. I don't even care what game system it's in. I just want a Cathay book.
Well, I will say, and this is from the site in part, that the focus of the game is very regional, right? It's meant to be localized, and through that, I think it'll provide a cool lens to exploring the setting. But I feel like that nature of gameplay does not lend itself easily to sprawling coverage of the setting, because it likes to be very focused. I like the system a lot, though. I think it is unique in some ways.
I'm excited to see it. I hope that. I think in Warhammer terms, the writers have always had a problem with time. So they both underestimate how long hundreds of years are and overestimate how long hundreds of years are, because usually they're working from real world equivalents, and we don't have long-lived species like dwarves and like elves. And so I think there's a really great opportunity, because it is before Magnus has reunified the Empire, to explore that on a regional basis. But I'm kind of worried that they'll use it, that it's being used as more of an opportunity to just say Age of Sigmar exists over here. We blew up Warhammer, so let's just recreate it in the old world. And I think that would be a missed opportunity. But I'll wait and see.
Yep. Azure Shadow, Lindsay, what do you think's happening in Middenheim?
Is this a Lawhammer question?
No spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers. I can't give any spoilers. What do I think's happening in Middenheim? I think the way Andy has interpreted the lore, you know that Andy Law is a great synthesizer of lore. So if there's a flame in Middenheim, the flame of Ulrich, and if there's a flame of Azurian in Ulthuan, then, and if there's rumors in the lore about other flames around the world, then that means something to Andy Law. And if Ulrich has a twin god, then that equally means something to him. So what's happening in Middenheim, I think, speaks directly to the entirety of the way that Andy Law has interpreted the Lawhammer version of the Warhammer world based on his interpretation of Warhammer. And I think it will be fundamental. And I think what's happening there now is probably going to be quite scary for the characters when they find out.
Mm.
And yes, I will be a politician soon. That is my politician's answer.
Excellent.
I won't really be a politician.
You're so well suited.
I'd vote for Lindsay Law. Pormesia, can we tell if Anath Raema has got the biggest temple in Clarkarund amongst the whole elven cities? If it is not, why and where could it possibly be? So I think Clarkarund, which is often kind of touted as the city, like the main hub of the Beastmaster, I don't know if I called it a cult, but a career system. It is quite possible that, as we'll talk about when we get later into the stream, the Dark Elves have definitely, I would agree, twisted Anath Raema into something very, very different than she probably originally was, but the same will likely be said of the other elven factions as well, as we get further into it. And the idea that the Beastmasters of Clarkarund may be propping themselves up by having built some great temple that's about the enslavement of beasts and the breaking of creatures that are lesser than Dark Elves, which as far as they're concerned is everything. I think it'd be reasonable to say they might have a temple to Anath Raema there, but it probably is not what it appears to be on the surface.
I feel like there's a statue, isn't there? There's in the Marathi. In my reading, I'm sure.
Sounds, yeah, because there's a really interesting. Once again, Anath Raema is not well explored within the written material at all. Of that, like if you're looking at like the army books, I think she only gets mentioned like 3 times, almost in like the entirety of 7th and 8th edition. And
yeah, it's the Dragner thing, it's the Curtis relationship, and it's the the Beastmasters.
Yeah. That being said, one of the things that's sort of mentioned in I want to say it was, I can't remember if it was, I think it was the card game they made, is where we got a card that was made called The Chosen of Anath Raema. And The Chosen of Anath Raema, which is actually the art for this thumbnail for this stream. It was a card that was made that is basically this dark elf woman who is like she almost looks like an assassin. And she's got a hand crossbow in one hand, and she's like covered in dark robes with a cape billowing out behind her. It's very much evoking that she's chasing something.
As she should, yes.
Yeah, and actually, yeah, she even has the assassin keyword within the game itself. Which here I'll post the. I will post. Her
statue is an Anlek.
Oh, it's an Anlek. Okay.
So her statue in Anlek, apparently erected by Marathi, holding a bow and severed head of an elf with a brazier for flesh offerings, but she also is wearing a belt. And I think it's really important to note she's the sister of Cain, and she wears a belt with severed heads and severed hands on it.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
there's
the
an
card art,
interesting
if anybody wants
hand
to see it.
link there with Cain.
Yes, which we will circle back around to that. So it could be that
Yeah.
her greatest temple may have once been an Anlek, but that would be unfortunate because Anlek has been
So I think before the Sundering, she would have been worshipped elsewhere. And I think we have to consider, if we're going to be talking about alternative expanding the lore, that that her main center of worship would have been on Ulthuan. She slew Draupnir, and then Draupnir was used to literally create the cradle of civilization for the elves. Her temple would have to be somewhere amongst the bones of Draupnir as her greatest creation. She's a fertility goddess.
That makes sense.
Ulthuan is so central to the history of the elves, and without her, it would not exist. So,
yeah,
exactly, right?
Yeah, I would be willing to bet that she had. It'd be interesting to know to debate whether like she had the greatest temple, but it might have been shattered during the Sundering, lost, or but it also could be that it's buried. Like one of the things a lot of people don't know about Ulthuan, especially when you're dealing with Eastern Ulthuan, is that it is riddled with tunnels, like absolutely to a almost ridiculous extent, to the point where there's even notes in some of the lore about how there's like believed to potentially be even like a fishman presence in like some of the flooded caverns where there used to be like a lot of high elf cities that got destroyed because of all the tsunamis and everything during that. So it could be that it's buried down deep somewhere within Ulthuan. But I would very much agree that the original Great Temple is somewhere on Ulthuan, or was before it was perhaps destroyed by the Sundering. But if it's there, no one's mentioned it, or it's likely lost and or hidden and or deliberately forgotten.
Yeah, and I think that we should have a think about, and there are some super chats coming up, we should have a think about what her role was for elves before the Sundering that the High Elves chose to suppress and the Dark Elves weren't that keen to continue.
Yeah, I'd say let's put a pause on the super chats for now, because a lot of them are asking very story specific stuff, and let's outline what we know, and then let's go from there. So for Anath Raema, we get a story that's I think Lindsay did a really good job of already alluding to this, that starts off very simple, but if you squint at it for even half a second, you start going woo 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 about a lot of things, which is that according to the myths of the High Elves, way back, like we're talking before the elves were really seeming to even exist yet, you had the realm, the perfect golden realm of the gods, and Assuran's up there on his throne, and the gods, you have your council of gods, and Anath Raema is quite clearly said to be at this point in the story among the heavenly gods, because she is hanging out up there in the with Assuran and the court in the heavens, and Draupnir, the father of dragons, is welcome into Assuran's cult because Assuran sees him as an equal, according to the legends of the elves. So the great mighty father of dragons from the high elf perspective. And when Draupnir comes into the court, it's said that most of the elven pantheon is enamored with him, but Anath Raema is not. And she is quoted to see him, according to the high elves, as nothing more than an upstart beast to be harried and hunted as any other. And so apparently the two of them, she pursues Draupnir, and the two of them get into this great epic battle that shakes the heavens so violently that it disturbs Assuran from his meditations and contemplations. And when he goes to the fight to stop it, by the time he arrives, Draupnir is mortally wounded, and with a single word, he banishes Anath Raema to the underworld, the Mirai, so she gets cast down to the Kithari, and he takes Draupnir, who is dying, and makes out of his body and his bones, he makes Ulthuan. So he uses like the bones to make the mountains, the flesh to make the plains, and then his scales are given to Isha, who then passes them down to the elves, and they make a bunch of crazy, powerful artifacts out of him.
We haven't mentioned who Draugr is, the father of dragons, so the ultimate. Talks just asked in the chat, and I think it's important to put in a little detour in there because the timing's important, and that is that she kills Draugr after Draugr has supposedly been the fire that partially forges the final weapon of Vol, the Sword of Cain.
Yeah.
So Vol has been crippled. He's been chained to the anvil. He's forged all those weapons. Draugr has come along and like blown fire all over them, and then she kills him. And I think that interplay with that sword, Vol, Draugr, and her brother must mean something more than just she's like, hey, he's just an animal. I'm gonna go kill him.
Yeah, there's some interesting gaps here of that. Okay, I'm gonna resist the urge to go into the theory crafting yet. Let me finish with the actual written material of that. So the other note we have about her, we talked about this as well, is that Anath Raema is portrayed, the Savage Huntress is portrayed as this incredibly powerful woman that wears a belt that has heads and hands hanging from it. And it is said that the heads and hands come from hunters that she blessed, but they spurned her offerings by not making tokens or gifts to her. So she basically has her revenge by cutting off their hands and heads. And she's often depicted with like a bow and like a sword or a spear, and that's pretty much it, other than many, at least over in the dark elf culture, she is often considered a goddess that is a patron of spurned lovers, because there is a tale that she once tried to basically make a move on Kurnos, the god of the hunt, and he spurned her affections, and she took it very, very, very poorly, to the point that the wood elf side of the tales have the idea that she didn't really become obsessed with this, you could almost argue like spiteful twisting of Kurnos' own ideals of like hunting just for the thrill of the kill, hunting just for the sake of it, just killing anything that you lay your eyes upon and not doing anything with it, just moving on immediately and unleashing more death. There are some among the wood elves that postulate that didn't happen until after Kurnos spurns her, and it was in reaction to Kurnos' spurning, as opposed to like something that she may have always had as a trait. But you also have notes among the dark elves about that she is the dark elves hold her in high regard because they see her very much as exemplifying the thrill of the hunt, the joy of going into battle, and get like very much being indulging in the passion that comes from acts of pursuit and violence, which is something that would be very core to a lot of what's going on in dark elf society. And that's basically it. That's like that, and that's all that's really written about her, other than a couple little other notes.
And in the dark elf calendar, one of the seasons is for her savagery. So one of their 4 seasons is named for her, named for the kind of person she is.
I would like to imagine that is the season where they have strong like eastern winds to go chase people.
Yeah, I think the season of savagery is actually I think it's the season after winter, so it's when the ice breaks up and they're actually able to leave port.
Yeah, that would make sense. The heads and hands thing is just such a clear and direct rip from Kali in Hinduism. You know, like she literally has a belt of hands and like a sling of heads. it's just so obvious. But her name, Anath, is much more from a Canaanite goddess who also had a brother, or was a partner of Baal. I can't remember. Baal just means Lord, so it's one of the Baals. But she was so savage in defense of her partner god, you could imagine in this case Cain, that she literally wades through rivers of blood. But she's one of those goddesses who's got that fertility and destruction aspect.
So now we can bounce back briefly to the theory thing that Lindsay was talking about, because I think there's so much here we can dissect of that. So from which, for anyone that wants to look up the exact quote, it's from the Banner of the World Dragon text, which is a Magic Standard item from the 8th edition High Elf's book. There is so much not said, or there's so much expressed without drawing attention to it in here, that like Andy spoke out of things that this is post the War in Heaven, because Draupnir at this point, this is the last thing that's going to happen with him. This is the end of his story. So he has already helped make the Widowmaker, the Sword of Cain, which if you've gone to like the streams that me and Andy did about like the elves and dragons, well, about dragons in particular, we talked about our theory that some people absolutely hate, but I think me and Andy stand by very, very strongly, that the dragons were very much enslaved by this act of Draupnir pouring so much of his essence through his god tier flame to create the Widowmaker. And I think, like very much Lindsay said, that it is not a coincidence that the very sword that Cain would take up, that would end up leading to sort of the ultimate war between the gods and cause like the greatest schism, is something that Draupnir plays a direct hand in. And it's interesting that Anath Raema, the thing that I find fascinating is this implies that Anath Raema wasn't on Cain's side during the War in Heaven, because she's among the heavenly court. She's with the Kadai. She's not with the Kithari.
Does it though, or is she, or does she go off on one and Azurian? So Azurian just steps in because her crime is so great, and it says he judges her and sends her to the Mirai, but basically he kills her. Like it's the underworld. She is dead. Azurian kills a god.
I mean, it's an interesting aspect of like, yeah, he banishes her forevermore. Yeah, that does come off very much as dead.
The Mirai is the underworld, right?
Yeah.
That's where the souls of elves go who escape the prince, right? I can't even I have to call it the prince even on a stream. Just in case. Just in case something bad happens to me. And Nethu guards the portal. I mean, you can argue she's a prisoner and Nethu is her jailer, or you can argue that she's just dead.
I would think that she still has influence, even if she counts as dead. Being dead is only so much of a problem for a god.
Well, absolutely. Like,
yeah.
Agree.
It's a part of me, a theory that I have rattling around in my head before we get back into the super chats and stuff. A theory that I have very much rattling around in my mind already is if I were tinkering with the story, I would want to explore the idea of Anath Raema being a goddess of, she's not the goddess of vengeance. There is a specific goddess of vengeance who's not the focus of the stream, but the fact that she is often so called upon for the idea of like spurned lovers or people that are in a way seeking revenge. They often talk about that her heart has been wrought. Like there's a quote in Total War about her that says something along the lines of that Anath Raema has her heart has become rotten to the core by vengeance.
Well, which is interesting, right? Because what's the curse of the Sword of Cain? Tempered in Draupnir's fire. The Sword of Cain, Widowmaker, makes you like kind of go off on one, and Well, it does. It makes you go.
No, I
Raj
love
in
that, though.
Scottish terms. Yeah, it makes you go Raj. And I wonder whether there's a hidden part of the story that between Draugnir forging that and it ending up where it ended up, that she didn't pick it up for some reason, and that's what she kills him with.
I mean, I could see that making absolute sense. And a part of me, the thing that I would wonder is I feel like the High Elves would very much propagandize the idea that Draugnir is this blameless, perfect figure that is, of course, the foundation of their paradise, and he was said to be best buddies with Assurin, and all the other gods were in awe of him. But it says that Anath Raema saw him as something so different. And I almost wonder if it's more of a situation that Anath Raema more saw what he really was, or saw what he was becoming after his part that he played in the creation of the Widowmaker. Of that, whether it's Draugnir's nature was changing, or even that I would never say that Cain was a great guy to start with by any stretch of the imagination, but I do wonder if there is a tale that Vol and Draugnir creating the Widowmaker, it played a role in turning Cain into something much, much, much worse than he originally was.
So I would argue there's a possibility that Raema could have had altruistic motives. Right? Because as a goddess of spurned lovers, she is also a goddess of loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty ominous that Draugnir was making weapons that could slay gods.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that there's something in there about her brother Cain, that Draugnir's made god-slaying weapons, and fear for her brother.
Yep.
Fear for her brother's ancestors, all the gods.
Because by killing Draugnir, I think it could be very much argued that she does quite literally take away the fuel to make another weapon of that type ever again. Because there is no other weapon like Widowmaker, and there's no note when all the stories of its creation that talks about like Vol poured so much into his essence that he can never do so again. Like, there's nothing that seems to state that it was like a one-off weapon that could never be repeated, but instead that perhaps even the opportunity to do so never presented itself again, which obviously, if you remove an entire half of the equation, being Draugnir itself, that would, if you wanted to portray her in a much more positive light of almost protecting the world from essentially a doomsday weapon, that is a route that could be taken. I almost wonder about a part of me almost feels like there could be a story of like blaming Draugnir for Cain's fall, in a sense of like the war in heaven getting as bad as it does. If the Widowmaker had never found its way into Cain's hands, it never would have escalated to the point where Assurin actually, gets off the throne and comes to blows with Cain and ends up banishing him to the underworld, which could be also interpreted in some ways killing Cain.
Yeah.
And if she's going for... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if Azurian doesn't do the same to her as he does to the ruinous powers, like he punishes her, he judges her, but it's a more or less permanent judgment than on the others. Like, she's done something wrong, but she hasn't been cast out completely of the pantheon.
Yeah, it's almost more of a... Yeah, it almost comes off that she's
in timeout.
Yeah, he hates what she did, but there's an understanding behind it.
Yeah, I think there are parallels between her and Ulrich. So, like, Ulrich's a god of savagery and winter and doing what needs to be done, of hunting, etc. But also that god that was repeatedly, like, coming back to the other gods and telling them stuff that they weren't listening to, going out and, slaying things and coming back. And I think there's an interesting parallel there between Ulrich and between her.
Hmm. I think at this point we can go ahead and jump into some more of the super chats real fast before we dive into, because I'm gonna bring up a super duper ancient piece of lore here in a second. Pormesia, shape changers are wood elf characters that can shape into a big animal / beast. Who is their patron deity if they were still canonical? Kurnos or Anath Raema?
I would like to think either could work.
Yeah, I don't think that would fall under one of them solely. I think it would depend a lot on circumstances, and there would be multiple routes in which to pursue this.
So they are called the Laith Kern, so Kernus is pretty like directly associated, but I have no issue with Raema affiliated kin bands because I think that would make entire sense.
Yeah, and it also seems that in many ways, Games Workshop, the way they've sort of written it, there is, I feel like in many ways, Anath Raema is supposed to sort of present as almost a dark mirror in many ways to Kurnos.
Yeah, and also I think that there wouldn't be a patron deity of all the different people who can shape change. I think there would be deities to whom specific shape changers are tied to. If you can change shape into a great bear, your patron deity is going to be different than if you can shape change into a dolphin, right? You're going to have Mathlan on the one hand, you're going to have a different god on the other. Like, if you're a wolf, you're going to be a different god again. If you're a dragon or a lion. So I think because we know that the Warhammer gods tend to be tied to specific animals or birds, I don't think there's a patron deity of shape changers.
Yeah, and your lifestyle as an elf, remember, is an offering to the deities you worship. The way you exist in the world is meant to convey their aspect, to resemble them. So what you do as an animal matters a lot. If you're turning into an otter and messing around in the lake, a very different kind of experience than a mountain lion hounding trespassers in the forest, right?
Yeah, and I think for the written material as it currently stands, the answer is Kurnos, but it shouldn't be that simple of an answer.
It shouldn't be that simple.
His name is on them, though. He is claiming them this way, yeah? Like he's
Yeah. Pormesia, thank you, Pormesia, for all the super chat questions. Is there any antagonist elven deity that opposes Anath Raema, like thinks and sees the beast and all creatures too holy to hunt them down? I mean, Kurnos is always in the written material. Kurnos is very much portrayed as her like opposite. Like they are opposite sides of a coin when it comes to the nature of the hunt. That Kurnos is that you should not kill beasts unless you need to, and that when you do kill, you should use everything of the kill, and you should make offerings to give back that which you take, which often results in like either living pieces of the hunt for other animals to eat, or even bloodletting yourself to give back to the forest if you're in like extreme environments like Ethel Loren. Whereas like Anath Raema is portrayed in the Wood Elf and High Elf books as almost a more selfish interpretation of that you're not killing for the sake of you need food or you need to protect the forest or you need to keep the populations. You are killing for the sake of killing.
Yeah, like for Raema, the first rule is have fun. The second rule is you offer to her, not to the dead animal.
Yeah. First rule is have fun would be very that does sound like
safety,
yeah. So the way they're initially portrayed, it's her and Kurnos on the opposite ends of the spectrum. That's again one of those things that I think is really oversimplified, and if you were to zoom in onto it, would become like significantly more complicated the more you dive down. Of that, a lot of Anath Raema's nature seems to have been buried or simplified and almost like deliberately hidden, which I think suggests like a deeper narrative that we'll talk about as we kind of go into it.
I have a take there, yeah.
Yeah, Anath, Raema, there's a story I'm going to bring up in a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'll just do it now. So there's a story in old Warhammer. I was looking for the exact quote, and I'm struggling to find it because I have so many stupid PDFs of it was either first edition Warhammer or third edition Warhammer. But one of the really old stories is there's a myth, and it's like basically the first myth in all of the universe for Warhammer, which was how the concept of death makes itself into the world. Which is that it basically says in the beginning, in the realm, there was the realm of the gods. So this is from the perspective of the ether. And in the ether, the realm of the gods, there you have all these great godlike beings that exist within this realm. And they notice that a hole opens up in their realm. And when they look through this hole, they see a planet. And what it's basically kind of revealed is that the old ones opened their dimensional portals at the North and South Pole. And actually, it was originally just the North Pole. So they opened up their portal at the North Pole, and the entities within the ether are looking down through this portal, and they see reality. And they're like, whoa, what is that? And the story basically goes that all of these entities are like hanging around the edge of the hole. And then one of them, it literally says, falls in, like on accident, like it trips or something. So one of these entities falls into the hole and ends up basically turning into what we would kind of recognize as a god. And so they go, oh, this place is kind of cool. And so various members of them start going down and creating things. So they're creating like forests and creatures, and they're doing all this crazy shit. And one of them is an entity that becomes known as the World Serpent. And the World Serpent is this great, beloved, super god tier snake. And there's a story that someone, it's not laid at the feet of any particular entity, but that something happens where the World Serpent, someone hunts it and ends up killing it. And this is, and from the perspective of these etheric entities, it's listed as the first death. Like to them as entities, death was an impossible concept. And then the World Serpent is killed. And it's the first ever death that they, of their kind that they witness. And it like is an earth-shattering revelation. And the World Serpent, this concept of the World Serpent, it ends up like having pieces of its body made into parts of the world. And the idea of the World Serpent is carried into later Warhammer, but the World Serpent becomes this very nebulous entity. It exists within, it still exists of that. If you look at like High Elf runes,
Yes.
From like the High Elf Army books, there's the rune of the World Serpent, and it's never explained because it basically was created in Old Hammer. And then as the settings carried forward, it kind of got replaced. You could debate with the World Dragon, but they don't actually have the same rune. So it's implied to be its own unique entity that is not detailed in the later lore at all in the slightest.
I do like the idea there's a pattern that repeats in history.
Yeah, and I think the old ones really mess stuff up because the old ones crash together like the deep time and the no time of the Aether, where the gods have just always existed and exist forever, and the time and death and consumption of the real world, and they sort of bash them together, and that's how you get those paradoxes in Warhammer, where an elven Loremaster says, yes, the elves are the children of the gods, but also the gods were created by the elves. Like you get this weird paradox loop that I think is in the start of 2nd edition, Tome of Salvation, maybe. I'd have to grab it.
Yeah, and a part of me wonders if like there's an idea of I would love the idea that this is like that tale of Anath Raema killing Draupnir almost, but from the perspective of the gods, of that when Ashurin has, like when the gods have fought and they fight the chaos gods and stuff, and gods die, they don't see it as like a true what they would come to understand as death, the way
I
Anath
think they
Raema
do,
does.
right? Because that's the why everything goes wrong. Because they're so terrified of dying. That's why they're cut off from the mortal world. That's why Isha cries so much. Because Azurian's like, you can't go back there anymore. That place is dangerous for us. Kane's gonna die because of it. This all sucks. Like, I think they already know that mortals can kill gods before she kills Draupnir.
I mean,
because Kane's already fought that guy. Kane, is he just about to fight him, or has he just fought him, Eldinesh, when he
well, we don't have that in fantasy, right? That's just a 40k. I've never
but you know, like we synthesize this.
You have to.
I'm gonna say I personally, in my head canon, I throw that out. I don't like the story of Kane fighting a mortal. Now to me that's 40k only. That's Eldar only.
Okay, fine. You know how I feel about 40k and Wifrimp, that they are.
That's
agreed.
Totally fair.
Agreed.
That's very fair. I think for my personal thing, I like the elves not being involved in the war in heaven, for me personally. But that is, I think, a fair interpretation, though.
But I think the separation by the old ones of this planet from the rest of the galaxy kind of explains the paradoxes that are in Wifrip, because things happen outside and the gods exist outside, but then they also exist in here in this little bubble. And I think that's how you can, to some extent, explain some of the paradoxes.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important for the gods to have paradoxes. That, otherwise it, like, everything about it just immediately collapses on itself, but it also keeps them like nice and weird in like an inexplicable way.
Yeah, well, like Malice has broken metaphysics in a couple of ways, and that's fun. Like, it's neat.
Yeah, I do quite like the idea that in Wifrip, so let's put aside the idea that so there is a paradox here, and Cain contains multitudes, right? And Cain the bloody-handed and Caleb and Chicane over there finds out mortality through one route, and then over here they find it out through Draupnir, because Draupnir dies before Ulthuan is created as this perfect home for the elves. So he must, to a certain extent, die before they even like encounter. So maybe you're right. Maybe in Warhammer, you could say that's where death is first encountered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Remember, there could be several wars in heaven. I mean, Games Workshop
so many.
Games Workshop has made multiple already. So.
Well, they have.
War.
That's the paradox. I mean, that there's a war in heaven that happens there, and the gods find out stuff, and then there's another war in heaven where elves exist, but the gods are still finding out stuff. Like, how long does it take for gods to learn stuff?
And then we've got the Necron war in heaven.
Non-three-dimensional temporal time, I think.
Yep, very much. We have another question here for Pormesia of who could Anath Raema's incarnate? Who would the current avatar be of Anath Raema in the Warhammer world? If anyone has been, so it's likely there is one. Who it would be?
So it's got to be someone who really, I know who it is in Lawhammer, I think, so I'm not going to say anything because spoilers. But I would say that it would probably have to be from a group of elves who still worship Anath Raema. So you're kind of limiting it to dark elves, maybe to the Aenir, the Laura Lorne, because they worship a more complete pantheon, and potentially the Azrai, but they really view it as a corruption. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's who it's supposed to be, and it's the Aenir.
So
because they maintain more of a balance, right? So the Aenir haven't gone down the dark elf route of really going full on. We only worship the Kithrai. They haven't gone down the high elf route of really like stripping all of those out their pantheon. So they're worshipping a more complete and more true to the original purpose of those gods' pantheon.
Yeah, and it would be interesting if it was Maraseth as well, of that. I think there would, it would be one of those stories that I think would tie well into exploring her just beyond the idea of the so I know Lindsay already mentions that Raema's design is very much like almost hysterically based off of
Kali.
Kali, yes. And one of the things that if we pull on that inspiration is that Kali isn't just a goddess of like horrible violence and death and all this stuff, but that there's more complexity to her. Of like, you have the whole stories about that she, like, there's that time she nearly destroys the world because she gets wrapped up into one of her big great dances, but then, you know, her husband throws himself under her feet and she feels horrible about stomping all over him, and it actually causes her to stop. But it's like she's a more complex figure than that. And I think Mariseth would make such for an interesting avatar of that. People, I think, as PCs would encounter her, they wouldn't think that someone who is a regal queen, this authority figure, could be the incarnate of the Savage Huntress, because surely she would just be a savage, murderous wild woman, when in reality there would be a lot more complexities to it. And the view that we have of her from the army books is more of a reductive view of a character that's only been, the only thing that remains of her, because once again is just this cruel, bloodthirsty, monstrous, almost boogeyman type figure.
So one thing that's fun about her being a more maternal figure, a more constructive figure, a creator god in some ways, is that her worship is banned in Athel Loren.
Mm.
And who runs Athel Loren?
Yeah, good old Kurnos and Isha over there calling the shots.
Yeah,
But mostly
they're just
Isha.
like spatting. Yeah, mostly Isha, because they're spatting over Orion.
Yeah,
Right.
there's enmity there. it's
Yeah,
very fun.
Yeah, I actually wonder a lot about it's sort of a just sort of tossed in there of the relationship between Kurnos and Anath Raema, because you know it's way more complex than the just
It's way more, and it has to be way more complex, because yet again, this is Warhammer being like, hey, we need a motivation for a woman. I know, let's make it a man. Like, come on, fuck off. Like, that cannot be. Anath Raema's driving force as a goddess. The reason she takes joy in the hunt, the reason she hunts everything, is because once one guy was like, nah, I don't accept it. It's bullshit.
Well, if you think about it, they should have gotten along pretty well, right?
Yeah, maybe
Like,
they did get on pretty well. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say it to me. I feel like the story, like the Hyles are like, oh yeah, you know that Anath Raema has been trying to be a homewrecker. When I feel like the story would likely be, this would be one of those opportunities to show a much darker side of Isha.
Yeah.
Of that, Isha is really responsible for, which Isha, to be like clear, one of the main stories that we've talked about a little bit on a prior stream that revolves around Isha is that Isha is actually devastatingly fucking scary.
Yes.
When Drakira, the Queen of Vengeance, whispers into her mind and like gets her the idea to like take down Elenil. It's Isha that like literally is the catalyst that causes all of the destruction gods to get essentially obliterated by her overall actions. And the idea that Isha's legacy, especially in Athel Loren, where she is the dominant power, would very much portray Anath Raema as just this horrible, bloodthirsty savage that attempted to make a move on her lover, but he nobly spurned her. She went, I'll have my vengeance, and just started killing everything. Like it.
Also, maybe it's more profound than that, because when we talk about like a god making a move on another god and being rebuffed, you're kind of talking about entire dominions of belief and reality and concepts making a move on another. So maybe that is what is hidden in that is Anath Raema, who believed in the Kadai interventionist way, going to Kurnos and saying, come on, like, we've got to fight. You've got to put aside your balance, because when the chaos powers are concerned, there is no balance. They want complete destruction. Your idea of balance is wrong. It's wrong-headed. It's going to get us all killed. Come over. So I could accept that if it's been interpreted over time by successive mortal minds to be jealousy and spurning her advances, is actually a much more fundamental approach to get him over to her side.
Yeah, that would be a really easy and good way to have a like the idea that the words have not necessarily changed, but the interpretation of them have.
Yeah.
Of that he did spurn her, but it wasn't a lover spurning. It was yeah. That's interesting. And I also
more ideological spurning.
Yeah, I would actually like that a lot. Of that, one of the things that I think that would serve as a good critique of, like, say, the Wood Elves and Kurnos and Isha, is their sort of obsession with preserving balance and being this isolationist focus instead of going out and taking the fight to the great enemy.
Yeah.
Of instead just trying to, like, hunker down and hope it'll blow over, which it won't. It never will. Chaos will always find its way to your doorstep.
Yeah, and I think that's the big difference between the two of them. One is interventionist and one is, obey Azurian's rule.
Yeah. Because, I will very much admit that, like, the more research I do on him and the more I talk about him, the more I become a anti-Ashurianist flag holder.
Well, yeah, like, just because the Kadai gods are pro-social doesn't mean they're, like, nice. They will have a little society. They're gonna make it.
Yeah, one, I think there is, I really like the idea of seeing the Kitharai, like, their methods are extreme, very much, but that they're the ones that are really trying to ring the alarm bells and say, we have to use every means available to take the fight to chaos, because if we don't throw everything and the kitchen sink, if we don't put everything on the table to fight these things, what they've become, we will lose. Which, I mean, they're right. That's literally the whole point of the end times in the end, is that they were correct.
Yeah, and Azurian's basically saying, yeah, because if we fight, we will also lose.
Yeah.
There is no winning. Like, Azurian's just like, what'll happen will happen.
Yeah, it's which I think Anath Raema sort of can land an interesting note in that, of that the Savage Hunters, the idea that when you see quarry, your mission is to stop at nothing, to hunt it down, track it down, and kill it. Is such, in many ways, would be the right way to deal with corruption, but at the same time, that in and of itself is the road to corruption. Of that, if you become so obsessed with that hunt and to track down and to never stop, and you're just unleashing, like, Anath Raema, even if I think you were to delve down into the core of it and try and see past so-called, like, the propaganda, it's like she's still fucking terrifying. Like, I still very much believe that if you were to encounter her, she has, like, gore covering almost the entire bottom half of her body, because she's got decapitated heads and hands hanging from her belt, and it's like, that's disgusting and awful, regardless of what those individuals may have done and what their role may be. Though I really like the whole thing of, like, Cain being the bloody-handed god and his sister has literally, like, disembodied hands hanging from her belt, and I feel like there's a relationship there, but I don't know what it is.
They get along.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, like, Cain is so miserable in his warlike nature. Like, it's all about, like, hatred and hardness and just do what you have to do and eternal warfare. And she's like, take joy in this.
Yeah, she does, by far, I think of literally all of the Kitharai, she seems to be really the only one that's having fun.
Yeah, and I angled in part of the Temple of Spite her worship as compatible with that of Cain, because they are sibling gods and they have similar purpose. So,
Korn kills Assurin, so fuck his laws. The Kithari is formed, and Assurin is reborn and judged hard. Yeah, it's a bummer when the guy trying to enforce the rules dies and goes, okay, well, clearly he was wrong. We should do something different. And then he comes back and goes, uh-oh. Uh-oh.
So one fun aspect of this, as long as we're on Isha and Kurnis and Orion, and so regarding jealous lovers, how many years has Athel been around?
Like
it's thousands, right?
Like pre-elf or like
with elves, like the society of elven
so
Athel. Yes,
it was immediately when the War of Vengeance ended, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
it's many thousands of years.
Yeah, good few thousand.
And every year, Orion requires a nobleman sacrifice to be reborn. An eligible one, a majestic bachelor. How many suitors do you think the sacrifices to make Orion had in total?
It is a staggering amount of dead elf hunks. Yeah.
I'm just saying that there's a lot of jealous lovers out there by now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
This was like It was part of the character I played.
You know, now that you mention it, I almost wonder if Kurnos, the entity itself, because it's always been a little odd that Kurnos gets, when he spawns into Athel Loren, he just gets saddled with this. He has to die once a year. And I almost wonder if it's something that ties back further than just that, of if he's always had a concept, if he's always had a nature of that he's this being that eternally dies and is reborn and dies and is reborn endlessly, that would lead, like, there would be such a interesting aspect of grief if you have the idea of Anath Raema has loved, like, either, if you wanted to go with the Spurn Lover storyline of that, she has loved every version of him, but she, like, to have to go through watching the one you love come back and die eternally year after year after year after year. And it's never easy. Like, Kurnos' death is always horrible.
But I think Vera's thinking more about all the people that knew and loved those boys before their sacrifice.
The mortals.
Like, I mean, how many must there be? Like you say, Vera, and also, like, how many elves must there be in Athel Loren to be able to provide a young man of age every year for the past 4,500 years?
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, right? Like, it's always noblemen and like.
Yeah, I do think that ties in very well to. There's a note in I think it's the 8th edition Wood Elf book that there is said to be a secret cult of Anath Raema, notably within the Pine Crags up in Woodrioth. But I very much, now that you mention it, it really seems like there would be a highborn cult to Anath Raema.
A highborn cult of Anath Raema who are trying to stop, that doesn't believe that a young man is actually required, that's just something that, I don't know, they do for whatever reason, and wants to break that cycle.
Or that doesn't believe he has to die in winter, and that Isha is doing that as a means of control.
Isha's doing that as a means of control, but he could just keep on living from year to year.
That would be fucking gut-wrenching. If you were an elf and you were under the belief that, like, your father, brother, son, whatever, didn't need to die, and then you have to, like, watch him be taken, because the for anyone that doesn't know, the selection process for who's going to become Orion is horrible. Like, you don't know who it's going to be. The Wild Riders just kind of show up at your door, and it's Ariel that chooses. So Ariel, there's a method, a very magical, mysterious thing, where she basically selects a suitable host from somewhere in Athel Loren. The Wild Riders, who are these, they're not really truly elves anymore. They're more like these weird, almost half ethereal, half elf entities that show up. They abduct the person. There's actually there's a short story in the, if you ever get the Elves Omnibus, one of the major books actually covers one of these boys, like, running away from the Wild Riders, trying to get away from them because he doesn't want to do this. And then once they capture them, they will take a bunch of like basically thorned vines and sew it into their bodies and like force it into their veins through their. It's a torturous, horrible process. Like they're literally tortured and kept alive throughout the entire thing before then they're taken to the oak and they are twisted or elevated, depending on how you want to know of it. And they don't even get the mercy of death because their consciousness is subsumed into Orion. Because we know that Orion, his consciousness is made up of everyone that has ever been Orion. They're trapped in there forever.
Orion is confused. This is a confusing process. It is barely at the end that there is any semblance of an I, like a defined self. There are like whispers and the voices of the recent dead and the power of Kurnus behind it all, but it is disorienting for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah, the idea...
And it is awful.
I actually love the idea that Anath Raema, that almost puts her in almost like that feels much more almost like justice than vengeance to me, of trying to break what is a horrific cycle. And the only thing they have to rely on is literally Ariel saying, well, it has to be done. Even though when Ariel...
despite other avatars not requiring any such
Orion's
form.
the only one.
Despite her. She doesn't to die every... He dies every winter. She doesn't die every summer.
No, she just goes and sleeps in the Oak of Ages for the winter and regenerates.
As most things do in nature that go through winter, actually. strange.
Yeah, that's man. That does paint Isha/Ariel in a very unflattering light, but it also matches a lot with her character because like when she gets in that horrible spat with Orion, when she has the whole dark magic cycle and she starts getting corrupted by dark magic, she just chooses to stop resurrecting him.
Yeah, she does. And then she's just in charge and she'll do whatever she wants because she's who brings him back. And if she chooses not to, or she chooses to wait a little while, or she chooses who is brought back that might have a better personality, that could have influenced.
I mean, you could almost see Ariel deliberately picking males from families that are political threats.
Yeah, you sure could, couldn't you? Or males who are likely to be amenable to her wishes in the earlier stages when their personality is at the forefront.
Yeah, and I do think there's such an interesting societal impact on all the people that care for those people that get sacrificed. Like every year, the fear that it'll be your brother, your partner, your son, your cousin, like that's just awful.
Well, it's a grim fate too. It's weeks of torture, it's ego death, and it's to be subsumed into this like I guess sort of ecstatic but still whirling mass of the hunt forever, right? Like you're joined with a god now, I guess.
It's interesting because Anath Raema's viewed as like the savage huntress, spurned by Kurnos, but actually other elves looking in on Athaloran would be like, they're the ones that are bestial. They're the ones that hunt with no, like that kind of behavior isn't the kind of behavior we'd expect from a civilized group of elves.
Well, especially like for Anath Raema, that's a great thing of that. Anath Raema does not encourage like the massacre of like easy kills. It's supposed to be the joy of hunting down like the worthy challenge, the beast that catches your attention, the thing that is the thing that you will find the joy in pursuit, which isn't just mindless massacre.
Whereas, I don't think Raema's above like shooting newts with an arrow if it's funny.
Oh no, I don't think she's above that. But like you look at the Wild Hunt, the Wild Hunt is literally a frenzied tornado that goes out killing everything.
It is explicitly cannibalistic, yeah.
Like the Wild Hunt is awful. It's awful. You have quotes from like some of the Black Library books and some of the Army books about there are elves that get caught up in it and they never come back.
Yeah.
Man, I almost see Anath Raema in that light as like almost being for the elves of Athaloran that hold to her of like she is the way to try and hold on to your elfdom and not get absorbed into the mass that is Kurnos as part of the forest itself. Of that, in Athel Loren, you always have this interesting relationship of the elves trying to hold on to what makes them elves instead of getting absorbed into what Athel Loren is. Because Athel Loren, in and of itself, it's not good or evil, but it is gluttonous. Which is why they have to have like the waystones around it to keep it contained. Of that organism will take anything and everything it can into itself.
Well, and under Kurnos, there's sort of this subsumption, right? There's this absorption. There's this becoming part of the pack, becoming part of this wild hunt. For Raema, you are trying to emulate the apex. You are trying to hunt for pleasure, to do what you want to do. There's an individuality to it. So
yeah, I mean, I kind of like the idea of like when we go back to like Mariseth, Queen Mariseth of the Laurelorn, being the avatar of Anath Raema, of her being functionally able to, like, she's the reason the Laurelorn elves are able to protect themselves from the influences of those forest spirits and the weave itself. Of that, they're involved with the weave, but it hasn't infected them like it has the elves of Athel Loren. Potentially, that's a route you could go with it, I should say. I'm going to grab a couple more super chats here real fast. Is there Shadow? Okay, so I assume this is supposed to be the Kithrai. If the Kithrai twisted their pantheon, what god's interpretation have the Azur twisted? You could very easily argue all of them. I don't think any of the gods have remained as they once were, from the perspective of each of the elven cultures. Like, I wouldn't even say that like the Kithrai like twisted the pantheon itself. It would probably be argued that chaos is ultimately what led to this pantheon splitting. But
yeah, definitely. I think you can view the elves in that early days, the early times before the Sundering, as worshipping that whole pantheon. Each of the pantheon having a purpose in their, and you know, some gods being worshipped more if you're in the wilder parts of Ulthuan, some being worshipped more if you're in a city in Ulthuan, but all of them being viewed, and just like any multi like any pantheon, people will have their favorites, right? Certain families, the nobles, will have ones that are more associated with them, and that's fine. Like, that's how a pantheon should work. You'll worship ones at different times of the year, but I think since the Sundering, they've basically just gone in two different directions, and one side have said they're not for us, the Kithrai, we outlaw them, and the other side have said the Kadai aren't for us, they're too weak, they don't meet our lifestyle needs.
Promesia, it will be a side topic, but I wonder, can we say Draupnir is a father of Shin Yang too? If he is, does it mean the Dragon Emperor has a reason to hate elves? So this is something me and Andy talked a fair bit about during the Dragon stream. There are a lot of fathers of dragons figures. Like we've got Kelgalanos the Black, who's said to be the father of all dragons from an old world perspective. But then you have Draupnir, who is, from the High Elves' perspective, the father of all dragons.
From a mythological perspective, right? So I think we have to be clear about that. Draupnir is the father of dragons in elven mythology. And in elven mythology, when she kills him, his body is literally used to make the entire island of Ulthuan. It's like, we have to at some point be like, was there really a dragon that flew around like we know other dragons fly around? Or is this like mythology central?
Yeah, and like Kelgalanos the Black is like when you have scholars in the old world debating the primal progenitor of the dragons. They're like, oh, there's this great black dragon that's the size of a continent. But then you have Shin Yang, who is a literal physical being. And we don't know anything about Shin Yang's parentage. We know about his birth, which was a pretty spectacular event. But the dragons of Ulthuan and Cathay are pretty wildly different creatures. They likely have some sort of primal ancestor, or common ancestor rather, but who knows what it would have even been. It might not have even been as what we would recognize as a dragon.
So
but-
maybe?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, so maybe.
Yeah, it could be. Like, maybe Draugr was completely real, and maybe he was Shin Yang's dad. And maybe an elf god did kill him, and Shin Yang's like, those fucking elves. Like, who can say? Though I don't think Shin Yang would hate the elves as much for that as it would just add to his hatred of gods, which Shin Yang already hates the gods. So you could argue that this is just another log on that fire, if you wanted to. Super Unlock. Perhaps the name and presence of her frightens or pain beasts, and they use it as a verbal whip. Oh, the Beast Lords or the Beast Masters.
I quite like that. There's like some magic component to invoking her that terrifies
I like
lesser
that
creatures.
Too. I like that too for all the names. So like Anath, Raema, we talked about how like it might be related to, they might have got some inspiration from a real world goddess, Anath, who also like was wading through blood and was a hunter god, a huntress. So if there is, as we know there is in Warhammer, and like a single language, a root language, then yeah, you would expect names of gods, just like names of demons, to have power. And even if it's not the true name of the deity, the fear of it over time has either made it become something that frightens or pains beasts, or by its nature, it always was, because of the nature of words in Warhammer.
Yeah, the true meaning should approximate something related, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could actually very much see that maybe tying back to, like, if you wanted to talk about like the enchantments behind like the Whip of Agony that Rekkarth the Beast Lord wields to like break creatures and beasts. I think that actually would make a lot of sense. Jonathan Scott, excited for Nethu, the working classes sad boy stream. The working classes sad boy. Sure.
Nethu.
Ricardo Andre, remember? Yeah, we got that earlier. Yep. Ricardo, who would a Lithanar be up? A Lithanar is often tied up with Drakira, the Queen of Vengeance. Which a Lithanar is a spiteful bastard. We'll talk about him someday. He's a handful.
He's a lot of blessings though. He's pretty blessed.
Yeah, he has a lot of goodies.
Yeah, and Malekith is the avatar of Azurian. He is the true Phoenix King. Come on.
Yeah. So I want to say, the end times, a Lithanar gets like revealed as the avatar of Drakira, which like that one was like, yeah, sure, why not? That adds up. Joe Numbers, could Raema be a partner deity to Kurnoth, like Artemis and Apollo? Raema could be the animalistic primal huntress / mother lion, while Kurnoth is the human-based hunter and is supposed to hunt her.
I like this because I feel like as deities, they're sort of meant to complete each other. Right?
Yeah. There's such an interesting, like, her being the sister of Cain makes a lot of sense. Even though it seems like Cain is very much that meticulous, the murder between men, the murder between like almost like not higher beings, but like a more intellectual focus of murder. Whereas Anath Raema seems more like the more natural side of it, where it's the thrill of the hunt, which gives like animals and just life in general. That thrill of the hunt exists because it's meant to keep you alive, to add to the desire to acquire food, to do what needs to be done to protect yourself when you're young.
I will note that Kurnus is definitely impinged on this. Like this is something that he evokes, but that could be not always the case.
And also the weird thing about this is actually in real world mythology, in our world mythology, Orion, who he reincarnates as every year. Orion is the one who is the great mortal hunter, who boasts that he can hunt any prey, and Artemis is tricked into killing him by Apollo. Like, so there's something interesting there about if she's Artemis in this, the huntress, then her brother is actually Cain, and her brother is tricking her into doing something to Kurnoth.
Oh, what if Anath Raema is the reason Kurnoth dies every year? but it's like
Yeah.
it's that thing of Cain tricked her.
Exactly. That's kind of like where I'm sort of going down with this path, that there has to be something. If we're going down that parallel, then the parallel I would go down, because Kurnos is called Orion,
I mean,
would be that she's the hunter and Orion, Kurnos, is the one that dies.
I almost see a drawing thread that I really like of like if Cain was what Cain was, but then the Widowmaker was made for him, and it turned Cain into something so much worse that he sought to drag his sister down with him, and maybe even gave her the Widowmaker and she wielded it. Like he allowed her to use it for a hunt or something, like trying to bring her on side, and she kills Kurnos. And that ends up, you know, a lot of other stuff happens, but that leads to her seeking to kill Draupnir because of Draupnir's involvement in the creation of this weapon that led to her murdering someone that she very, very clearly deeply cared for. And Kurnos, because he was killed by the Widowmaker, being eternally damned to literally die.
To keep on, to literally
endlessly
die over and over. Yeah, I think that like ties up some neat bows with why would Isha be doing, and Isha's doing it because she can't bear for him to die. So Isha's not doing it for control necessarily. She's doing it out of grief. Right, it's the only way she can keep him, to do it over and over again, and it requires a sacrifice from her people, and that's awful. But you know, someone's put in the chat like some of them will be willing, and that's actually like that's true. They're religious people, so some of them, for some families, that might be the most like noble and honor that your noble-born elven family can have, is being one of your sons being selected to be, you know, the sacrifice for Kurnos and Orion for a year. Yeah, I definitely like that interplay.
Yeah, I also love that of like, you could almost see Anath Raema trying to escape from grief by losing herself in the joy of the hunt. Of
and
that, some of that savage...
Blaming Draupnir first for what's happened to her brother, killing like going out there and going absolutely like berserk and wild, but then, as you say, like finding that's the only joy that's left to her.
I would so much love that of like, you could almost see the image of when Ashurin catches up with her to end the fight, and she's standing there over Draupnir's corpse, and she had that joy, and she just feels nothing. She's just empty.
But what I like is that he doesn't kill her, right? He doesn't she's not on the side of the ruinous powers. She's banished to the Mirai, and what do we know about that place? That place is where the elven souls wait for the end times until Aerith Kyle can call them. Now, they fucked this up in the end times because they never actually used them. But they should have done, right? And so he's like, your rage daughter, you've got so much rage, but also joy, like, save it. Save it for when the time is right. And when it will be of most value. Obviously, maybe he doesn't say that to her because he's just silent and he judges. But like, that would be my intent.
Yeah, I mean, that would be such a good tragic story for her, because that means like when she's not hunting, she's just left in that hollow awfulness.
Yeah, sad. Everything that she's lost. She's lost her brother. She's lost her lover. She's lost the world.
Yeah, I really like that, because that ties in so well. Like the idea of her taking heads and hands from people. Of that, people that abuse the power that she offers, and they don't like appreciate it, of like seeing them going down that path to corruption, of that if they don't, because it's weird to me that she only punishes the people that use her stuff and then don't make proper offerings to her, and it's sort of portrayed like, oh well, she's jealous and she gets very like, how dare you ignore me. But I almost wonder if it's her way of like curb checking elves that are on a path that is going to lead to a form of corruption. And she's basically like, the idea that she takes hands and heads, I almost wonder if the hands is like kind of almost your first strike, and then if you fuck up again, then she takes your head. Or if it just sort of depends on the circumstances, or if, I mean, she could just take it all in one reaping, but I almost feel like it's a step-by-step process.
So as they're a people of archers, I think like if you take one hand, it's like when the French were like, we're going to cut off, it's probably apocryphal, we're going to cut off like the bow fingers of the English, right? At Agincourt. But like the worst thing you could do to an archer is cut off one arm, one hand, because they're not going to be able to to shoot their bow. So maybe you're right. Maybe there's that, like, that's your first thing. You'll be denied the joy of the hunt.
Yeah, but if you're a real savage, if you're really willing to atone, you can use your teeth.
Just use your teeth. Yeah,
and
exactly.
then beheading.
And then your head has to go.
There's no other way about it, I guess. Not at that point.
She's like, I admire the game, but you've gone too far. That ties all of the elements of her story actually into a cohesive narrative that I really like. And it's also really fucking sad, and it also makes the secret cult that is fully canonical of her and Athel Loren have a really tragic view of. You almost wonder if Anath Raema is also this figure that almost says that what happened to Kurnos is awful, but he should be put to rest. He should be allowed to this thing that Orion is, because Orion, of course, isn't truly Kurnos. He's this. I mean, what Orion and Ariel are is like a whole discussion because they're very weird entities.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you almost see Ariel, instead of being the true incarnation of Isha that we see over with like the Everqueen, you almost see Ariel being like Isha's grief manifest. And just trying to drag Kurnos back from the dead over and over and over and over, using the power of Athel Loren, which is the source of the weave and like the most powerful force of life in the setting. And Anath Raema almost being an opposing force of trying to let him go, which would make them both right and both wrong in some really sad ways.
Yeah, the other thing so that would make like the Apollo in this story is Cain, like Cain is the jealous one, but also in this story, some stories Artemis is tricked and kills Orion, but in some stories they send a scorpion and that's how he dies, which has got an interesting.
Because that also ties to Cain. Cain
That's
does
true.
have the scorpion as one of his animals.
And
Gaia.
That's spicy. So basically, what happens is Orion's like, I can kill anything in the world, and Gaia's like, I don't like that. I'm going to send a scorpion. But over here, you've got Apollo and his twin Artemis, and Artemis being like, I heart that guy Orion, and Apollo being like, I don't like that guy. And somewhere in that story, Apollo either tricks her or tells Gaia, and a scorpion gets sent. And in some stories, she literally shoots him, Orion, and in some stories, she literally, she just lets the scorpion go. So essentially, she lets her brother kill him.
Lawhammer, again, the Rebirth Lawhammer version almost exactly. This is hilarious. Even the scorpion. And I will say, this actually ties really well into the War of Heaven myth. The parts that GW wrote, which they barely wrote any, but in the Warhammer fantasy version of the War in Heaven, Kurnos is killed by the Widowmaker. Cain kills Kurnos trying to get to Isha in a version of the story. And this would tie into all of that so well. Yeah,
I love it. Apparently, I didn't. Andy says stop revealing all my mysteries, but I didn't know any of these. It's just in there. It's just in the mythology, Andy.
He was worried we were going to be so far off he'd be annoyed. Now what? Now what?
Yeah, now what? Skylar Martin, is Anath Raema a colonizer style selfish hunger? Nature exists to fill my trophy room. No such thing as respect for nature exists for me. She's not really. What's interesting is she doesn't take the trophies of beasts. She only takes trophies from those that she has offered gifts to, but they didn't properly appreciate
it.
Yeah, I would say that like the like Cecil the Lion style of hunter, where they're trying to bolster their own reputation or like like go outside their means to do something they feel is special. Like it's a different energy. She's more immersed in the hunt. It's more of a true passion, something that she's putting her own life and limb at risk for. I think there's a purity to it that isn't present there, because when I think like the style of hunter you're talking to, there's like a it's very yucky.
And he just walked past the window and shook his fist at me.
She's not a tourist hunter, I'll put it like that.
That's what we specialize in this show. We spoil the plot of Lowhammer here on the Elf God show. Yeah.
That's because it's a tale as old as time.
Very true. Elemental exposure. Congrats for ending the Pantheon. Thank you very much. How much more for Slayer inspired scalps go to? Never. No.
Wait, no. Wait, let him cook.
No.
You wouldn't even see it when it grows back. Think about it.
Yeah, you
No,
wouldn't.
I can't be bothered. I cannot be bothered. I already,
No way. No, think about it. Think about it.
Getting the hair stuff done is proving to be enough of a pain in the ass as it is.
Henna tattoo.
No, never.
One time.
Never. Stephen Lucas. Don't forget the Necron Brock Satan, physical embodiments of universal forces with para casual mega cannons. Of course, the war in heaven was multiplied. Yeah, there's a lot of different.
Yeah, there's like 65 million years ago, the war in heaven happened, and then it happened again 10,000 years ago, but it also happened at both times.
Yeah, Games Workshop's like, that's a cool sounding phrase, the war in heaven. Let's use it again.
They're right.
They're not wrong. Yeah. Marisa, from Anath Raema's perspective, what is riding a dragon? Something needs to be forbidden because seems like a blessing of Draugr, or something needs to be done to showcase the beasts that they are toys.
I don't think Raema really cares about making beasts feel their toys. I think she cares about chasing them around and attacking them.
Yeah, I don't think, and there's nothing that I've seen that seems to really suggest that Anath Raema herself gives a damn about breaking beasts to use as pets or mounts or creatures. Like even when you read the Dark Elf book, the 8th edition book, when they introduced the Beastmaster being attached to Anath Raema, it's very much portrayed as the Beastmasters like Anath Raema and claim her on their team. But there's nothing that indicates that Anath Raema gives a shit about what they're doing.
So I've actually got the book open right now, and it doesn't mention Anath Raema in the bit about the Beastmasters. She's just a box out. Like, that is just an implied connection. Obviously, like, it's a clear connection. They're Beastmasters. But still, it's not like it says they do this because they worship her.
Yeah, to be honest, I think the card game, I always forget what the card game was called. War something. But the card game that they did for Warhammer Fantasy, I actually think a much better job for the Chosen of Anath Raema. Of the Chosen of Anath Raema are assassins, which is also directly tied into Cain, because the Cainite cults have assassins among them. The idea that the cult of Anath Raema would be specialized assassins, I think makes way more sense to me personally than the Beastmasters do.
It does, because the Dark Elves are gifted the joy of the chase and of the kill. Anath Raema does not care who or what is hunted. Every living creature is prey to the bloodthirsty goddess. Whereas the Beastmasters are just after beasts to do practical things, to be used in gladiators, to be used as beasts of burden, to be used as slaves.
Beastmasters, we love you, Raema. Ew. Ew.
Whereas Anath Raema is much more about the joy of the hunt, and that is what could possibly be. Can't believe I'm going to say these words out loud, but you know what I mean. What could possibly be more joyful to a dark elf who worships Anath Raema than to hunt down like the greatest living mind that there is in the world? Like, that's a foe that's truly worthy of your hunt.
Yeah, like the Beastmasters. They're doing it wrong. They're chasing after these beasts and harrying them and capturing them so they can hunt for them. No.
And I'll say, I don't think that in and of itself is like necessarily a bad thing. Of one of the things that the Dark Elves do, like we see Malekith do this with the Cainite cult, the Dark Elves will often use the elf gods as political pieces. Yes. Of like the Beastmasters, I could absolutely see them building an over-the-top grandiose temple to Anath Raema and Clar Karand, and even being like, oh yeah, we've got Anath Raema's backing, and for them, it's literally just a political move to secure their power stuff of being like, well, we have the power, like we make offerings to this goddess, and we have this goddess in our corner. She's like, we emulate her by hunting these beasts. Like, they make a political argument for it, just like Malekith makes a political argument that he is favored by Cain, and that's why he's allowed to be the Witch King, even though he doesn't give a flying fuck about Cain.
Yeah, and by virtue of being Cain's sister, there's some regal aspect that Raema takes on that's useful politically.
Yeah, and arguably the witch elves and the way the witch elves throw themselves into war with abandon and with joy is way more like Anath Raema than it is like Cain.
Yeah, because Cain, whenever you read, especially like within all of the roleplay games, he's often like his tenets are much more about meticulous murder. It's very much more about like the executioners of Harganeth are much more accurate to Cain with their like perfect killing strokes and like making like the perfect kill than the witch elves who fight with like this wild frenzy and abandon, which is very bizarre for Cainites.
I believe
like
I recently.
Sorry, Vera.
No, I recently wrote a witch elf like this because it's an obvious connection, I think, in the Temple of Spite book.
Yeah, I very much agree with all that. That I feel that the witch elves are probably the most the most Anath Raema like group among all of the elven cultures, compared to all the other groups. I think they just kind of got tied in with Cain because that's like the classic. I mean, you go back to like the old witch elf art where they've got corn on that little hat on the front page of like the 5th edition or 4th edition Dark Elf book. But it's like, you go back to like 6th edition even, and Cain is literally the only god in the entire Dark Elf book. Like he's it. It's just Cain. Cain is by himself. He's just there hanging out. And then as the editions continued onward, they started to expand it out, but they didn't have enough time to really do anything with. And I really feel like if you were trying to make Cain make sense with all of the stuff that they've written about him, it would have been Cain is more the patron of like the executioners and the assassins, whereas the witch elves and the hags and all that stuff are more Anath Raema's side of the coin.
Yeah, especially because the witch elves are called the brides of Cain. They're not called like Cain's children. So like they could be... Gods can marry their brothers and sisters can marry. Like for all we know, Anath Raema was like married to Cain.
I mean, elves are super incestuous from the Black Library books I've read.
Weird, yeah, right. Brides of Cain.
Elves are all about that Alabama action. Daughters of Raema and the Brides of Cain. That would make so much sense. And it makes so much sense.
At the end of the round, at the end of your turn, you roll a d6 for each of your characters that's in a unit of witch elves. On a score of 3 or less, the character immediately suffers d6 strength 3 hits as the witch elves lose all control and turn on their ally. Because they're all about the hunt. Doesn't matter who you are or what you are. They're all about the kill.
Yep. Like, I mean, that ties in so well. Like, of course, even with like the thing of the Manticore, you almost see the Manticore as... I almost see the Manticore in that way as an interesting light. They're always talking about in the books like, oh, the Manticore is like the ultimate creature of Cain. To me, it feels more like the marriage of Cain and Anath Raema into one monster. Of that, it's got that scorpion aspect of Cain, but it's got the savagery and the predatory instincts of Anath Raema. Of like, I've always felt that the Manticore is a weird Cainite beast because once again, it's more about that bloodlust, savagery, barely could be controlled aspect. Which is much more Anath Raema than it is Cainite. It's just that Cain gets top billing with GW, so they slap his name on everything.
I feel like the interplay between gods is underserved in general in elven culture because really a lot of a person's complexity will be expressed through like what pantheon of gods they hold as personal to them, like what who they hold in esteem, who they try to emulate. Because the attempt to live as multiple gods would want you to at once is challenging and gets close to the truth of someone's personality. So
actually, now the more I think about it, the more I really dig that of like if Anath Raema's like core creature is maybe like a lion or some kind of predatory cat beast, and for Cain it's the scorpion, then the Manticore being the mesh of brother and sister there that would make it a pretty horrific creature, which is great. Like it looks weirdly mashed together. Let's see. We got another super chat here from Jonathan Scott. The obvious thing Kurnosh should have spurned her over was a plot to kill Assyrian. He was holding them back. He had to die. Only Cain had a plan. Well, Assyrian ends up meeting in the Warhammer Fantasy story. Assyrian, according to the roleplay series of books, ends up being killed by Khorne. But then pulls the whole Phoenix hat trick and is like, haha, just kidding, my death was greatly exaggerated. And all the Chaos Gods go, oh shit. But that is a story you could absolutely run with very little tweaks if that's something you wanted to do.
Yeah, I definitely think I'd have it as it's not necessarily the plan isn't the thing that she's trying to tempt him with, because we don't know necessarily the specifics of it. It's just come to the Kithrai, become interventionist. Like leave your non-interventionist brothers and sisters, wives, children, whatever.
Stephen
Oh,
Lucas, wonder if it. Oh, Athel Loren is sick, and it's corrupting Orion. I mean, there is. We don't have time for it, really, in today's stream, but there's definitely there's something very weird about Orion and Ariel and their relationship to Kronos and Isha that is deeply involved with Athel Loren as an entity.
The spirit packs are pretty serious.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that Games Workshop has never attempted to detail. They just have like thrown it out there, and even though it's like the hot sizzling fireball of like what's going on with that should have been answered at any point during Warhammer's history, they never touched it with a 10-foot pole. Which is a shame, but the advantage is we get to make up our own answers, which is also kind of cool. Ricardo meant pre-end times Erythkial, I think, could fit and change. Oh gosh, what was this in regards to?
End times, Erythkial.
Oh,
what was the other one from
for the Elithanar's avatar?
Mm.
You could argue, I suppose. I feel comfortable in my thoughts on that subject, but it's something you could argue if that's what you're referring to. I think that's what you're referring to, but feel free to correct me. You don't need to do a super chat though. You can just do a regular comment. Malekith's what? Use your words. I believe in you. just leave a regular comment.
Malekith's avatar. Interesting. Yeah, Malekith views Erythkial as a suitable consort for him, right? That's what 8th edition says. I've got it right here. I'm gonna look at it again. So I would say he can't be her avatar because he views her as a potential partner. Like Malekith is bigger than just in Malekith's own mind. He spurns the very idea of avatars.
From Erythkial too. I mean, eventually we will do this lovely little crew we've got gathered here. Eventually we will do an episode on Erythkial one day. Of course, we're doing the kiddo. It's Erythkial who sees Malekith. I think there is.
Yes,
there
you're
is
right. I've got it. No, I've got it. So there is a rumor in Naggaroth, however, that there is one soul Erythkial yearns to seize beyond all others. In Malekith, the Pale Queen sees a consort whose ruthlessness is fit to match her own. Like, you could view that as a rumor that's actually not that she sees him as a partner in any sense other than she wants him for her avatar. I think that's a really good interpretation of that, Ricardo.
Yeah.
That also would actually line up with Malekith also being the avatar of Ashuran, because Erythkial's whole thing is that she wanted Ashuran as her partner. She wanted a almost kind of like a political. Erythkial loved Ashuran, and Ashuran being like, "Nah, I'm already taken." Erythkial got pissed.
To the underworld.
Yeah, and Erythkial, man, you think Anath, Raema spurned Kurnos. Nah. Erythkial is like a whole different beast. Erythkial is a scary person. God thing, entity.
It's interesting, the parallel there, though, that he sends both of them to Mirai, to the underworld. But because she went first, she's the boss of that place.
Yeah, there is something kind of weird for that to get used twice in 8th edition. There was a Games Workshop writer that was like, woman loves man says no, banished to hell.
That's just how he solves love triangles.
Twice. Yeah, Assurance's like, no love triangles in heaven.
Too complicated, go away.
No drama here. Joe Numbers. Anath Raema brings the lion and the wings. Kane brings the scorpion tail and the humanoid face. Because he's all about battle, war/battle, and only we do things like that.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like
so
that.
so if AR brings the lions, what do we think about the white lions that back in the day before the Sundering, that they actually the reason they've got pelts and they're hunters is because they're actually Anath Raema's was their patron deity. That could be quite interesting.
I would actually love that because that would mean that Anath Raema's shrine could be hidden somewhere in Krace, which is literally
That's what I was thinking.
the most rural forested realm that is full of like great dangerous predator beasts. And
Well,
it's a land where to prove yourself, you literally have to go out and hunt one of the most
Exactly.
savage predators.
It works
So
especially
it's
well.
more. Yeah,
Oh.
sorry, Vera.
Well, because they have woodcutter's axes, and Kurnus in some of his aspects is against that.
Yeah, that's
This is
really
perfect.
Yeah, I would love the idea that Krace is actually the land of Anath Raema, but that's like suppressed knowledge. And it's been like, oh yeah, no, this is Kurnos' land.
Before. Yeah, going back to my point
Oh,
before.
you know
when
what?
there
That
was
would
a
actually-
pantheon, they all would have been worshipped across the whole of Ulthun.
Yeah, that actually ties in well to when the sister of Ariel is murdered and she like is tracking Marathi, like she's trying to figure out that Marathi was behind it. She unleashes an invasion of Ulthuan and Orion invades Krace and just butchers like the lands of Krace and Illyrian, but especially like Krace suffers horribly at the hands of Orion and he feels terrible about it.
Is that the sister of Ariel that Malekith was
Yeah,
in
that's
love
his
with?
wife.
Yeah,
his
his wife.
wife.
Yeah. And Marathi, like,
Had
has
her
killed,
assassinated.
but in secret. Yeah, had her assassinated. Yeah, because
Yeah.
she feared that she would bring, the love of a good woman would bring balance to the force or something.
Yeah.
So I believe we had some reference to cults of Raema in the fishing waters of Kothik also, and that is
Yes.
proximal to Krace.
I really, really like that the idea that the great temple of Anath Raema is hidden, like right around that border between Krace and Kathik, right on the northeastern edge, because that it's such an unexplored part of Ulthuan. A lot of the stuff that we've gotten for Ulthuan mostly focuses on like the inner kingdoms, Kalador and Etain, and then like a good bit of Yivres thanks to like Grom and everything. So like the south and the center, but like all of the stuff around, but especially the northeastern edge. The northeastern side, we know dick all. Like until we got like the Wolfrup 4th edition book. The idea that Anath Raema's temple is hidden out there would make for such a good adventure, especially because even if you were to find it as like a group of role player, like if you're role playing a campaign, even if you're a group of heroes with some high elves with you and you find it, like there are high elves that would kill you to suppress that knowledge.
Yeah. Especially because the axes, the woodsman, I really like that they're woodsman axes, but also they've been handed down like over time. So
Yeah,
they've
they're
been
heirlooms.
handed down from before the sundering potentially. So this is when before the pantheons was sundered. That's pretty cool.
Yes, I would, and the idea of Anath Raema wielding like a big fucking two-handed axe that she wields with one hand in one hand, then she's got like a hunter's bow in the other. Oh, okay. All right. I'm digging that.
Also, an axe commonly
that's
used to
such a
chop
good
off
point.
heads.
Yeah, and Cain's domain of Nagarath is adjacent. Like it's the neighboring thing. So that they would be brother and sister lands. Krace and Nagarath.
That's cute.
Ha!
Mm-hmm.
That is, I do like that. Show numbers. Quick! Vera, make us some Outer Ulthuan canon. You write for it. Nobody can argue. Therefore, you're the voice of authority.
Recently, the cuisine has started using too many imported spices.
There you go.
Yeah, that's canon now. and the old heads are mad about it. Grr, star anise.
Yeah, there's a lot there that I really enjoy. I mean, that gives us a nice tying together narrative of like dating back way pre-Cataclysm, even pre-war in heaven, of like you have this storyline of Anath Raema dealing with the corruption of her own brother whether by just the influence of the Widowmaker, which of course puts a very sinister aspect on Vol that I like a lot, because Vol is often seen as this very blank, oh, he's just a poor cripple, but they're actually being something much more sinister behind it. Of Nutmeg from the Sorcerer Isles?
The question is, I don't know, have you ever done a stream on the Widowmaker? Is it the Curse of Cain? Is it the Curse of Vol? Or is it the Curse of Draugr?
Yeah, we have not done a purely dedicated stream to just the Widowmaker. We've done Cain, where the Widowmaker was talked about a fair bit.
Yeah.
Which, though, we didn't actually talk as much about the curse. We're probably, at some point, we need to do like a two-parter on like Tyrion and Teclis, where we have like, we just do them both together and make it like a two-parter. And we would probably focus on the curse as a major part of their story, because it's such a big part of them.
Of course, High Elven propaganda says it's a curse of Cain, that Cain has put on the weapon and Cain puts on people that wield it. But is that really true? Or was Cain cursed and tricked by Vol?
Yeah. Or did Draugr influence a curse because he was enslaved and that was his way to fight back?
Exactly.
Ooh! Ooh!
Like, what did Draugr give exactly that he didn't mean to?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to chew on in that. So with all of that, I don't think there's anything else we necessarily need to go over. I think we actually managed to weave. We stumbled and kicked over Andy's very well hidden stash of Anath Raema thoughts, and then tied in a number of other elements of like giving a reasonable basis for why there would be a very strong highborn cult of Anath Raema that isn't like a sinister cult of the dark gods, but is actually something far more empathetic and tragic, fighting against a cycle of potential grief and someone being brought back to just die horribly again every year onwards to eternity. Amadeus, thank you for all the cheers. Oh my gosh. Wait! Nagaryth, Krace, Safari, Avalorn. Is Ulthuan, this paradise gifted / crafted by the gods of the elves, is it just a material physical representation of the mandala?
I was thinking that just as we were talking about that, I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder if it is.
Never thought of that before.
It is also circular, and it does have all its realms that look really similar to it. So yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, that you have to consider.
Yeah, there's a lot of it missing now too, because the Sundering destroyed such significant pieces of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, those borders are drawn by the elves, but the elves are an extension of the gods in some ways. So,
that is a great. The idea that Ulthuan itself is like a physical representation of the gods of the elves. That's a super fucking cool idea. And like, I mean, it technically has Assurin at the heart of it, with his island is it's not the exact center, but it's close to the center where the Shrine of Assurin is.
I mean, it kind of just is. Like, I'm just looking at a map of it just now, and I was kind of thinking that when we were going through, and someone was saying the sister realm, and it's like Krace is next to Nagaryth, and I was like, did they just lay it out?
I quite like that. Yeah,
hidden. I really like that. Because it's the as above, so below. That words have meaning. That structure has meaning. That the spheres that the old ones. You know, the what's it called? The beauty of the spheres. It's not called that. The music of the spheres.
Harmony of the spheres. Harmony of the spheres.
Yeah, the harmony of the spheres and how the old ones move them. Did they do exactly the same?
And god damn it, man, that's what I've been back for Warhammer Fantasy Wolfram 2 in the book that was never released. Vera got frozen for a moment. She'll be back in just a second. She's gotta fix it.
There we go. It is just the mandala, isn't it?
Yeah, it is just the mandala. It is. I love that, because that makes the Sundering so much more important and horrible, of that it literally sundered the gods.
Yeah. It sundered the gods both physically, spiritually, and through their people. That's cool.
That's really
like
fucking cool. That's so fucking, dude. Amadeus, what a good comment. Good star for you, buddy. Gold sticker for you.
By the way, in one of the things I was reading today, it does say that that they believe that there's in the mountains where the annuli in the annuli, the clouds, that is literally a gateway to the realms of the elven gods.
Yeah, so like you almost wonder if like in that case like Ultima would be almost like a shadow that's cast onto the physical realm.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, I love that because that makes the sundering that makes the sundering matter even more than it already did.
Well, if it
broke the gods.
If it were a shadow cast onto the physical realm, what is it the shadow of? Dragnir.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Or the realms of the gods. What is Dragnir?
Yeah.
What is Dragnir? That's the question. But you can almost start to map them like Safari with the Tower of Hoeth is Hoeth's, Avalorn must be Isha.
Yeah, so you could figure out like you could sit there and figure out what does maybe the original mandala look like before it was shattered.
Kalador is Vols because the fiery heart of Vol's anvil. Like they're kind of all in there.
Yeah. I love that.
That's fun.
I love that a lot. It does look like the curled body of a dead dragon. It does.
Yes.
It really does.
Yeah. Wow. I think we have continued. I think that is actually perhaps Vera's freezing up was our wrap it up.
Forgive. My whole Chrome crashed.
Oh, you are all good. I don't think there's really anything else we need to go over. We've talked about her avatar with Mariseth. We've talked about a relationship with the Larlorn, with Atha Loren, Nagaroth, Ulthuan. We've gotten to talk about some with the slaughtering of Dragnir and how it ties back to like the myth of the world serpent and the first death. If you want to go that angle, but at the very least, just the killing of such a significant figure and how that ties into the forging of the Widowmaker and the potential corruption of Cain and Cain's jealousy and murdering or tricking her into murdering Kurnos, which leads to why Kurnos as Orion has to die and be reborn endlessly in an eternal cycle of grief because Isha can't let him go. Oh, thank you so much for gifting a sub to Amadeus. Lich Lord Chris, that was very kind of you. Thank you so much. That's what a cute reward for his level of thing. Of the idea that Ulthuan itself is just a reflection of the mandala. Oh, busy bees today. Busy bees. Yeah, I mean, unless either of y'all two have got anything to add, I think I'm actually really pleased where we ended up with that.
I'm really pleased where we ended up, not least because we unlocked a potential Lawhammer puzzle.
No, this is great fun. I think we've covered some good ground. I think we've unveiled some interesting ideas.
So as we're leaving off, could you remind us of the bit where the world serpent comes from? I don't remember the exact book. I'm gonna look for it later today. I'll just do some additional reading after the stream, and I'm gonna see if I can find the exact quote. But it's in one of the like older, really old books. It's either first or third edition Warhammer. But I've got like a bunch of first and third edition books. Some of them are rule books, some of them are not rule books. So I've got to go through them all and figure out where the hell I read it, because I know it's in here somewhere. But I've got like 8 PDFs I have to go through that are all dense. Because good God, GW used to print. They used to print so many fucking pages in all of their books, which makes the arcane journals of today's Warhammer very sad and pathetic in comparison. But at Lorebeards, World Serpent, Cosmic Serpent, 40K and Fantasy really just have the same gods. Well, yeah, especially like the further back you go in the editions, they were just carbon copies, or they would just constantly it was like a pen, like a game of ping pong. They would just bounce ideas back between the two settings. They didn't really separate like the way we understand now until like 7th edition fantasy. 7th edition fantasy is when fantasy took the elven pantheon and made something different, like notably different, because it added significantly more gods.
I think also, though, if you were a writer for both, it's easy, like I did earlier on, it's easy to forget which is from 40k and which is Warhammer. And you might not write the 40k lore in your Warhammer book you're writing, but you might like rely on it in a way that means it's a non sequitur unless you know that 40k lore, or vice versa.
Right.
Yeah, and it also doesn't help that the Eldari also went from I apologize to anyone that might have their feelings hurt by me saying this, but the Eldari went from being a faction that received a considerable amount of care and attention to getting very much put on the back burner for just the Imperium and the Space Marines, and they kind of got forgotten about, and their lore really stopped developing. Other than like, you know, that one moment where they went, oh look, Ynnari, and then they sort of forgot about that too. Like the Eldari have not received significant lore development for years. I think if they were to get the focus and love they deserve, they would probably take a lot of the fantasy gods that have been added since and probably port them over to 40k. So you would see like Anath, Raema and Irith Kial and all them show up in 40k eventually. Maybe, I don't know, maybe GW's at the point where they would be like, no, you're not allowed to port over anymore. I would hope that's not the case, because I think those portings strengthen both settings, not hurt them. But it's hard to tell with modern day Games Workshop. But anyway, that's us done. Let's do a quick Vera, you got anything coming up for the remainder of this week that you wanna tell the peoples about, where they can find you and what you're up to?
Yeah, I'm gonna be streaming stuff, making things. I'm screening Star Wars episodes 5 and 6 on Friday in my Discord, because it was Star Wars week last week and we started the series. So I'll be around on Vera Similla on all platforms. Whoa.
I know. That's such a surprise. Lindsay, what do you got? Anything coming up this week where people can find you if they want more of what you're up to?
We've got episode 84 of Lawhammer coming up live on Friday, and you can catch up with all the previous episodes by then if you could go into the Aether and stop time. So maybe if you're not caught up, you won't be able to catch up by Friday. But yeah, episode 84 is looking really exciting. Andy's released the episode art. There's just a very ominous looking bird on it. And then on Saturday night on Inside the Rookery, I'm welcoming Swedish-Finnish artist Jonathan Husko to talk about breaking into the tabletop games industry as an artist.
Excellent.
Oh, and we have book club soon, don't we?
Yes. Are y'all resuming this Sunday?
Before too long.
Or are we like announcing it this week and it's the following Sunday?
Yeah, I think we need to announce it. And what book are we reading, Vera? Anyone?
Yeah, let's do that. So Lorebeards Book Club. We know we took a bit of a break, but it's back. And they're going to be resuming on the 24th of May.
Yeah, and I always get the name of the book wrong, but is it Sigmar Heldenhammer by Graham McNeil, the first in that series?
Is it just called Heldenhammer?
I think it's just called Heldenhammer.
I can't remember. Just Heldenhammer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's called Heldenhammer. So yeah, so the reading material, if you want to show up for Lorebeards Book Club to hang out with Vera and Lindsay, which I highly recommend, especially because I'll be there in the chat. The novel is Heldenhammer by Graham McNeil, and we will be doing that immediately after Fantasy Lorebeards on the 24th of May. We'll have a lobby open for that very, very soon. I will actually see if I can get that up like today or tomorrow.
Right.
And for Elf God stuff, we will be back soonish. We'll figure out the date off stream, but we will be back with Nethu, the Keeper of the Last Door, next time, which is going to be a really good time. And that is it for us. Thank you all so much for watching. Joe, thank you very much for the last second. Things I learned from these streams. Ariel is controlling, and there's an elf god uvula somewhere in the maw. There you go. That's of all the things you could have walked away with. Sure. Why not? Thank you all very much for joining us. We hope you have a lovely day. I'll be streaming a fair bit myself, though. Of course, I'm taking it kind of easy after finishing up the Planthon. I actually have to call some haircut places. I found an alternative joint up in Denton. I got a call.
Yeah, congrats on the mohawk. Hell yeah.
Yeah, to see. I'm imagining like they're gonna want to like it'd be easier to get the haircut and stuff first and then dye it. That way, there's less. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Probably not.
That's never how they do mine.
Yeah,
they
it's always
dye
dye
it first and then cut after.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Because they're gonna need to bleach it, Ryan. They're gonna need to bleach it.
That's what I've been told. So it's gonna be a whole fucking thing. Anyway, so thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you guys later. 40k Lorebeards, come back to almost this exact space. 50 minutes for Lorebeards 40k, and we'll see you guys later.
See you later.
Bye bye.